What is the Suez Canal and its significant role? The Suez Canal in Egypt connects the Mediterranean Sea to the Red Sea, crossing the Isthmus of Suez on the Sinai Peninsula, that linking Africa and Asia. It is strategically vital for global trade, serving as a crucial shortcut between Europe, Africa, and Asia. By eliminating the need for ships to navigate around the southern tip of Africa, it significantly reduces travel time and distance. As a critical conduit between Europe and the areas around the Indian and Western Pacific Oceans, it facilitates the transport of goods, including oil and other commodities. What is the significance of the Suez Canal for Egypt? The Suez Canal is a significant revenue source for Egypt's economy, collecting tolls charged from passing ships. Throughout history, the canal's involvement in geopolitical events and conflicts has attracted international interest. It continues to be a pivotal waterway in global geopolitics. How was the Suez Canal constructed, and what was its purpose? The construction of the Suez Canal began in 1859 and was completed in 1869. It was designed by the French engineer Ferdinand de Lesseps. The canal is approximately 120 miles, or 193 kilometers long, and allows ships to bypass the lengthy and hazardous trip around the southern tip of Africa, known as the Cape of Good Hope. Who were the builders and owners of the Suez Canal? The Suez Canal was initially owned by the Suez Canal Company, a French and Egyptian joint venture. However, on February 15, 1875, British Prime Minister Benjamin Disraeli purchased shares from Khedive Ismail. At that point, France controlled 56% of the shares, and Britain held the remaining 44%, establishing financial control. Nevertheless, in 1956, the Egyptian government nationalized the canal, leading to the Suez Crisis, during which the canal was temporarily closed. The canal is currently owned and operated by the Suez Canal Authority, an Egyptian government agency. Who was the pioneer behind the idea of building the Suez Canal? The idea of constructing a canal connecting the Mediterranean Sea to the Red Sea originated in the era of Napoleon Bonaparte, a military and political leader who rose to prominence during the French Revolution and its associated wars. He became Emperor of the French in 1804 and had a significant impact on European history. In 1798, Napoleon invaded Egypt during the Egyptian campaign, which was then under Ottoman rule. During this time, he recognized the strategic significance of establishing a direct water route between the Mediterranean and the Red Sea. Faced with opposition from the Ottoman Empire and British allies, coupled with supply difficulties and the deteriorating situation in Europe, Napoleon withdrew from Egypt in 1801. Despite the campaign's defeat, the idea of a canal persisted. Who executed the construction of the Suez Canal? The modern history of the Suez Canal began when a French diplomat and engineer named Ferdinand de Lesseps secured a concession from the Egyptian viceroy Said Pasha to build the canal. Lesseps was a driving force behind the idea of constructing a canal across the Isthmus of Suez, connecting the Mediterranean and Red Seas. Ferdinand de Lesseps was a French diplomat with a keen interest in maritime affairs. He served as the French consul in Cairo, Egypt, from 1832 to 1837, where he became familiar with the idea of constructing a canal across the Isthmus of Suez. De Lesseps gained support for the canal project through diplomatic efforts. He was able to secure a concession from the Egyptian viceroy Said Pasha in 1854, granting him the right to build and operate the Suez Canal. How did Ferdinand de Lesseps establish and construct the Suez Canal? In 1858, Ferdinand de Lesseps founded the Suez Canal Company in Paris, responsible for the construction and initial operation of the Suez Canal. Successful in attracting international investors, primarily from France and other European countries, the company was dominated by French shareholders. Construction began in 1859, involving extensive excavation, engineering, and labor, facing challenges such as the harsh desert environment, manual labor intensity, and financial difficulties. The Suez Canal was completed and opened on November 17, 1869, initially spanning 164 kilometers or 102 miles. Upon completion, the Suez Canal Company assumed control of its operation and management. The French involvement in the construction of the Suez Canal reflects both diplomatic and engineering contributions. The canal had a profound impact on global trade and navigation, becoming a symbol of French engineering prowess, even though its control eventually shifted from French and international hands to Egyptian ownership. Why did control of the Suez Canal shift from France to Egypt? The Suez Crisis in 1956 marked a turning point in the canal's history. In July 1956, Egyptian President Gamal Abdel Nasser nationalized the Suez Canal. Seizing control from the foreign-owned company was driven by economic and political motivations. The canal was a vital waterway for international trade, and Nasser sought to use the revenue generated from its operation to fund the construction of the Aswan High Dam. The project was a collaboration between the Soviet Union and Egypt, remains a symbol of Egypt's ambition for modernization and economic development. Construction for the dam began in 1960 and was completed in 1970. One of the primary purposes of the dam is to generate hydroelectric power. The regulated flow of the Nile facilitated by the dam has greatly benefited agriculture in the region and supporting industrialization. While it has brought numerous benefits, the dam has also raised environmental concerns, including changes in sedimentation downstream, alterations to the river's ecology, the potential for waterborne diseases in stagnant water areas, and the creation of Lake Nasser, which has displaced many people. What happened during the Suez Crisis? The nationalization of the Suez Canal by Egyptian President Gamal Abdel Nasser angered Britain and France, which saw it as a direct threat to their economic and strategic interests. The canal served as a crucial route for transporting oil and other goods between Europe and Asia. This led to a diplomatic and military crisis involving France, the United Kingdom, and Israel, known as the Suez Crisis. During the Suez Crisis, both the Soviet Union and the United States became involved in diplomatic efforts. The Suez Crisis highlighted regional alliances and tensions within the Arab world. While some Arab states expressed solidarity with Egypt, others were critical or hesitant in their support. Notably, Saudi Arabia and Jordan initially criticized Nasser's actions, fearing the spread of radical Arab nationalism led by Nasser. The Soviet Union, which had cultivated ties with Nasser, supported Egypt against what it perceived as imperialist aggression by Britain, France, and Israel. The US, concerned about Cold War dynamics and the spread of Soviet influence in the region, pressured its European allies to withdraw from the conflict. What were Gamal Abdel Nasser's actions following the Suez Crisis? Gamal Abdel Nasser was also the political leader of Egypt during the Six-Day War with Israel and played a role in the events leading up to the conflict. One of the events that heightened tensions before the war was Nasser's decision in May 1967 to block the Straits of Tiran, cutting off Israel's access to the Red Sea. Nasser's decision to close the straits was part of a broader series of actions, including the expulsion of United Nations Emergency Force (UNF) peacekeepers from the Sinai Peninsula and the mobilization of Egyptian forces along the border with Israel. These actions were contributing factors to the outbreak of hostilities and heightened tensions in the region. The closure of the Straits of Tiran prompted international concern and condemnation, as it was seen as a violation of the principle of free navigation through international waterways. In the lead-up to the Six-Day War, Nasser formed a military alliance with Jordan and Syria. The three countries coordinated their military strategies and plans against Israel. The war began on June 5, 1967. The Six-Day War resulted in a swift and decisive victory for Israel, leading to significant territorial changes in the region. Victory in the war led to a surge of national pride in Israel. The leaders of the Arab states were left shocked by the severity of their defeat. The war had profound and lasting consequences for the geopolitical landscape of the Middle East and shaped subsequent conflicts and peace efforts in the region. In conclusion, the Suez Canal Company played a pivotal role in the construction and early operation of the Suez Canal, influencing global trade patterns and navigation routes. The canal's nationalization in 1956 had significant geopolitical ramifications within the context of the Cold War and Middle East politics. In March 2021, the Suez Canal gained global attention when the Ever Given, a large container ship, became lodged sideways, blocking traffic and disrupting global shipping routes for several days. This incident highlighted the significance of the Egyptian-controlled canal and the potential impact of disruptions on global trade. Over the years, the Suez Canal has undergone various expansions and improvements to accommodate larger vessels and increase its capacity. One notable project is the new Suez Canal, inaugurated in 2015, which involved the construction of a parallel canal alongside the original in certain sections. Subscribe, hit the bell, and stay tuned for our next video.